So I had a student ask me about middleware. So this video is going to explain middleware, and I'm going to use Golang to do it. I'm going to show you some Golang code first using middleware, and then we'll look at the definition for middleware. But middleware can cause some confusion because it's a general term. So the question was, what is middleware? When do I need middleware? And why should I use middleware? So when do you need it? Ultimately, you just want to write code that works. And middleware is a general description for writing a certain code in a certain area of a program. And if it works, great. And if that falls into the definition of middleware, then you've written middleware. But middleware is kind of a broad, general term. So don't worry too much about what is middleware. I'm gonna explain it, but don't freak out too much about the term middleware. People use it a lot, and it's a general, vague term. All right, so let's look at some code. So I'm working out of this GitHub repo, which is goes to11 is the username. And we're in the Golang web dev repo. We're going to look at 30 sessions. And I'm just going to add on to this because currently I have this code right here. And inside main, if somebody goes to the route logout right here, here's the route logout. If they go to that route, then they're going to, at first when you come to logout, we're going to run this function here, already logged in. Already logged in checks to see if somebody's already logged in. And if they're not already logged in, then they don't need to log out. Because they're not logged in. And so take them somewhere else. Send them somewhere else. They're not already logged in. But maybe we don't want to have this entire chunk of code here at the beginning. So there's another way that we could write this where we don't have to have that 3 lines of code right at the beginning of any route where we want people to be already logged in, right? So you need to be already logged in to go to log out. And there's another way we could write this, and it might make it more readable and also make our application just a little bit less prone to error. And let me show you how to do that. So I'm just going to copy this code and paste it right here, and we'll put it as 10 temp. And it is a busy day. I'm going to close all this and then go into main. And this stuff right here, I could abstract this out. And so I'm going to cut that code from right there. And I'm going to create a new func and call it authorized. And that's going to take in HTTP handler func, and it's going to return an HTTP handler func. And so that's what we want it to do. And so we need it to return an HTTP handler func. And now HTTP handler func is a func which has a certain signature. It's going to have a response writer, HTTP response writer. And it's going to have a HTTP request, a pointer to a request. And this is that's what a handler func is. And I'll show you that in a second. And then that code is going to be right there. And so now we have something. And then we have to call our server H and serve HTTP and pass in our response writer and our request. There we go. Cool. So now we could put any code we want. Code before, and then code after. So we could have any code before and any code after serving our HTTP response. So we could write code that runs before we serve the HTTP response, and we could write code that runs after. And then up here, and so I'm going to do the code before, and I'm just going to put that in. I'm going to change this to request. There we go. And so now I could just come up here to authorized, and I could to log out, and I could do authorized, and I could do that. And so now any page that I want to have be authorized, right? I just put authorized in front of it, and so that could add a level of security to our coding in the sense that we could look at all of our routes and know which routes are required to be authorized. You must be authorized before you go to this route. And that's just a different way of writing the exact same code. Before we had that chunk of code up here, it ran basically before we did everything, and now we have that chunk of code right there. So that confuses people the first time they see it. They're like, there's a lot going on in that code, which is why I left it out of this course. You have to kind of understand handle, handlers, handle func, handler func. And we'll take a look at that for 1 second here, but that's how it works. want to give a shout out to Matt Ryer and his awesome book, because Matt has an article here which talks about middleware and doing the exact same thing which I just showed you. So there's the article, and you can take a look at it. Thank you very much, Matt. Big fan of your work. Really appreciate everything you've done, and I've learned from you, and you've added value to me and then to everybody I've taught. So thanks for the work you do, Matt. All right, so let's take a little bit of a look at what's going on in that code. First, let's just run it and make sure I didn't make any errors, because the proof is in the pudding. And we'll just go make sure that we can log in and log out, and then it's all running localhost. I'm going to sign up and bond my alter ego, and 123 is the password I'm using. James Bond. And the user is 007. Cool. And now we go log out. Cool. And now if we try to go to log out, it should just take us back to index. So that all worked. Nice. So that's working. So just a little bit of what that code is doing. The key to understanding the net HTTP package is to understand type handler in Golang. The type handler is an interface. So anything that implements this interface, anything that has any type, let me be specific with my words. Any type that has the serve HTTP method with that signature, right? You got to have a response writer and pointer to request, is also type handler. So anything that asks for a handler, right? If that type has that method, then it is also type handler. And you see here that handle takes a handler. And if we look at that code, up here at the top, we have HTTP handle not found handler. Here's the not found handler. And we have handle. So handle needs to take a handler. If we look at the not found handler, the not found handler is right here. The not found handler returns a handler, right? So handle takes a handler. And then we have this, this other one, handle func. So handle func is going to take a function with this signature, right? And a function with that signature, right? Handle func is going to take a function with that signature, and a function with that signature is also a handler func. So a handler func is, we look at handler func. Handler func is type handler func is a function with that signature, and so it's like a convenience. It's a convenience type, and it has this method. So, right, serve HTTP response writer pointer request. So anything that is of type handler func is also of type handler. And so up here, I was using handle func and then just passing in, like here at index, I'm passing in a function with this signature. So handle func takes a function with that signature. This is just an identifier, right? So don't freak out on that word. People get confused by that. I could have called that hot dog or cowboy or catwoman or anything. But this is the type, right? It's a function with a response writer and a pointer to a request. Well, so handle func is taking in, for index, a function with that signature, a response writer and a pointer to a request. So handle func is taking in a function with that signature. That's a certain type. So handle func here was taking in logout, which was a function with that signature. But handle func is going to need, and it just like handle func, you get all these words, handle func is going to need to have a handler func returned. And so down here, authorize returns a handler func. And then right here I have that function, which is its own type. But because handler func is right there, I could just do some conversion, and I could make this function, that type right here. I can make this type right here. I can make it a handler func with some conversion. So that's conversion, what's happening there. And I'm returning that. And this function right here, there's the function, there's the curly brace, and then there's the ending curly brace, right? And then all around that, I'm doing the conversion all around that. I always have to pause conversion assertion, make sure I'm using the right word. I'm doing the conversion around all that. And I'm returning a handler func, and that's exactly what handle func wants. So now the code before, and I could do this, and if I wanted to run any code after, I could do that. And I'm passing in a handler func. And a handler func has attached to it that method. And this is the handler func right here. And this just automatically, figures out that this function right there is of that type. So that's kind of a nice thing that the compiler does for you. So that's an example of middleware, and let's look at the definition of middleware. So middleware, if we go to Wikipedia, it's kind of like the glue between layers, and it can be seen as like I'm just trying to get this to come over. Hold on, there we go. I'll make this a little bigger. So middleware is computer software that provides services to software applications beyond those available from the operating system. It can be described as software glue. So this is one example. Here's the operating system. Here's like an application. And then you have some code running in the middle, which is kind of helping everything run. So gesture recognition, speech recognition, things that you only are going to write, like, hey, I just want to write this once, and it'll run for all of our code or just some of our code. Just like here, I wrote authorized, and now on any route that I need to be authorized, I can put that in. It's kind of happening, the request comes in, and then we're going to have our application, but we want the stuff in the middle to check for certain pages if they're authorized. So that's how you can think of middleware. Something in the middle there. Middleware makes it easier for software developers to implement communication and input-output so they can focus on a specific purpose of their application. The term is most commonly used for software that enables communication and management of data in distributed applications. The Internet Engineering Task Force defined middleware as those services found above the transport layer set of services but below the application environment. So TCP/IP is like, requests are coming in on the web. So it's above the TCP/IP transport layer coming in on the wire, but below the application. So here we have requests coming in on the wire, the TCP/IP layer, the transport layer. And then here's our application where, we're showing data and things like that. But in between, we want to do things like, hey, are you logged in or not logged in? That would be like middleware, right? You could also think of it as middleware can be described as the dash in client-server or the to in peer-to-peer. So that's another way that you could think of it. So don't freak out too much about that term middleware, and don't freak out too much about writing like this code here where it's a little bit convoluted, a little bit confusing. Like the way I had it before totally works. And so let me show you that where I had it before, where I was just like, hey, here's a function, and we're just calling it on 3 lines of code. The advantage of doing it this way is I could look up in the routes and I could see, oh, is this a page where we require authorization? And anytime I want that, then it works. So that's a little bit about middleware. I hope that helped.